The crippled god, known also as the Chained One or the Fallen One, emerged as a figure of profound tragedy and complexity in the Malazan world. As a severely disfigured ascendant, he was set apart from the other gods and goddesses, frequently clashing with them. His origins were as extraordinary as they were catastrophic. Kaminsod, not a native to the Malazan pantheon, was summoned by mages whose ambitions dangerously outstripped their wisdom. This summoning was no mere arrival. It was a calamitous fall from his realm into the Malazan world, causing massive destruction. This disaster fragmented his physical form, spreading his divine essence across the world, an event that earned him the title of the Crippled God. This summoning was intricately linked to the history of High King Kala, who once conquered a vast continent over 50 years. His reign, marked by despotism over the Kalorian Empire on Jakuruku, provoked 8 powerful mages to seek a formidable power to challenge him. He was pulled from his own world, where he was already locked in a war with rival gods. These rebel mages lured Kaminsod into the Malazan world. Torn asunder, yet somehow still alive, his descent scattered his fragments across 7 continents, devastating the lands of Korel and Jakuruku. Some of these fragments transformed into the Great Ravens, while others manifested as the deity known as the Lady. This traumatic event left Kaminsod twisted, consumed by suffering, and intent on inflicting his pain upon others. Numerous gods, goddesses, and other ascendants rallied together to chain him, thus forestalling the implementation of his plans. In the process, the Tisteandi had destroyed his nascent realm and left it a lifeless fragment of a long-dead warren. Afterwards, the only manifestation of his realm he was capable of achieving was the tent he lived in. The location of the tent was not tied to any one place, and both the tent and the gates that led to it were known to wander. Dujekwanyam described it as a pocket warren that always wandered the Malazan world, with the god ready to take opportunity of whatever location he found himself in. The chainings were repeated at numerous points throughout history by the ever-changing pantheon in order to ensure the crippled god did not escape. The crippled god's appearance was a reflection of his torment. He was often seen as a bent figure, cloaked in rags and blankets, which barely concealed his mangled form. His residence was a dilapidated, sun-bleached tent on a sandy beach. Inside, he was typically found huddled over a smoking brazier. His voice was a raspy whisper, often interrupted by hacking coughs and labored breathing, revealing the extent of his physical ruin. His hand, thin and twisted, seemed as though every bone within it had been broken. His face, forever hidden in the shadows beneath his hood, remained a mystery, adding to his enigmatic and sorrowful presence. Constant agony was his only companion, and he often cast seeds into the brazier's coals, perhaps in an attempt to find some solace in the heady smoke that filled his tent. This action, so small yet so telling, spoke volumes of his eternal suffering. The symbol that came to represent him was a broken circle. This emblem was fitting, symbolizing not only his shattered physical form, but also his fractured place within the pantheon and the world at large. The broken circle was a potent reminder of his tragic history and the pain that defined his existence. He was not merely a passive figure of suffering, rather, he was a catalyst for numerous events that shaped the fate of the world. His influence was felt both directly through his own actions and indirectly through the deeds of his followers. One notable instance was his alliance with the Panyan seer, an ominous figure who led a fanatical, cannibalistic cult. This alliance was born out of the crippled god's desire to inflict as much suffering as possible upon the world, a reflection of his own torment. The Panyan seer's campaign of terror across Genabakis was, in part, a manifestation of the crippled god's wrath and despair. This alliance was also a strategic move, as the Panyan seer's cult was a powerful force that could be used to further Kaminsod's goals. Moreover, his desire to return to his own realm led to various manipulations by other gods and powers. These factions often sought to use the crippled god's plight to their advantage, seeing his weakened state not as a cause for compassion but as an opportunity for exploitation. The impact of these chainings was profound and far-reaching. One of the most significant repercussions was the effect on Bern, the sleeping goddess who formed the very bedrock of the world. The crippled god's chains bound him to her, and through these chains he infected her with a virulent, poisonous force. This insidious affliction not only caused immense suffering to Bern, but also posed a dire threat to all life on the planet. The corruption of Bern was akin to a disease spreading through the very earth itself, with the potential to bring about untold devastation. The gods and other great powers faced a moral and strategic quandary. Leaving the crippled god chained risked the destruction of Bern and, by extension, the world itself. Yet releasing him could unleash his vengeance upon the world. Furthermore, he presented a dilemma to Caladan brood. The crippled god was kept bound to Bern's flesh by the gods and other great powers of the Malazan world in events known as Chainings. But through these chains, the god infected her, poisoning her body like a virulent cancer and preventing her from awakening. Bern had long ago foreseen this attack and entered her sleeping state to focus her power into a hammer which she gave to Brood. Using the hammer to break the chains that bound them would stop the disease but would unleash the chained god's vengeance upon the world. At the same time, using the hammer would awaken the goddess, and her resulting movements would trigger earthquakes and eruptions that would destroy every civilization on the planet. Afterwards, the indifferent goddess would simply begin again and life would start over. On the other hand, if the crippled god's infection was left unchecked and allowed to spread, Bern would die, and all life that dwelt upon her would die with her. Brood bided his time to make a decision. The Chained One also sponsored the creation of high house chains within the Pantheon and the deck of dragons. This altered the Warrens, making them poison to those not of the new house. He had been struck down by sorcery and so sought to destroy that weapon of his enemies. He first attempted to secure the services of Quick Ben, but was rebuffed. He then recruited Gethel as the herald and Kala as the High King of the new house. In exchange for Kala's allegiance, the crippled god offered him a chance to slay Silverfox, though this attempt was ultimately foiled by Whiskey Jack, leading to Kala's extraction into the crippled god's warren. The crippled god's presence and fragments also had a profound impact on the world. His shattered form was a source of immense power, and the shards of his essence were powerful that affected magic and the spiritual realms. These fragments were often sought after by mages and other powerful beings, who used them to enhance their own ends. Kaminsod was distinct from the elder gods and possessed a power and origin that set him apart in the Malazan world. Unlike the elder gods, deeply rooted in the world's lore, Kaminsod's presence suggested links to unknown cosmic forces, his nature foreign to the world's fabric. Kaminsod's personal struggles were deeply intertwined with his actions and schemes. His constant agony, a result of his shattered form and chaining, was not just a source of suffering, but also a driving force behind his manipulations. These acts were not random acts of malice, but calculated moves in a larger strategy, born from his desperation to return to his realm and reshape the world that had so cruelly ensnared him. Broken, shattered, chained to this fevered corpse beneath us, I did not ask for such a fate. I was not always a thing of pain. These words from the crippled god himself reflect his internal torment and the unwilling transformation from a being of might to a symbol of suffering. The crippled god's influence extended across various realms and races. One of his notable schemes involved the Tista Edor, a seafaring people. Under his indirect command, they attacked Driftavali, a mystical island, to claim the Throne of Shadow, a powerful seat of magic and authority in the Shadow Realm. The Tista Edor's assault was part of the crippled god's strategy to expand his dominion, but their efforts were repelled by a diverse group including Andarist, Apsala, and Traveler. The Crippled God schemes also involved the Talan Imas, an ancient race of undead warriors. Using the Seven Unbound, a faction of Talan Imas, freed from their eternal vow, he sought to mold Kasa Orlong into the Knight of Chains. This move was part of a broader plot to claim a fragment of Crippled Emorlan, the Warren of Shadow, as his own. Crippled Emorlan, a realm of magic and power, was crucial in the Crippled God's bid to establish his own Warren. However, his plan failed as Kasa, an indomitable warrior, resisted his control and eliminated Bidithal and Silgar, key players in the Crippled God's scheme. Regarding the pantheon, the Crippled God harbored animosity and fear towards many deities, especially those who participated in the Chainings, such as Hud, god of death, Fenna, the boar god, the queen of dreams, or Cirque, or Pon, the twins of chance, Anomanda Rak, a powerful ascendant, and Caladan brood. Yet, as posited by Istanhala in the Chainings, his most dangerous enemy was not among these known figures, suggesting deeper and more complex divine conflicts. Hanan Mosag, the warlock king of the Tista Edur, was another pawn in the Crippled God's game. Directed to retrieve a powerful sword from the Jek, a barbaric race, Mosag's quest resulted in the death of Rulad Sengar. Rulad's spirit, taken to the Crippled God's desolate beach, was offered a resurrection in exchange for serving as the Emperor of the Tista Edur. This agreement was another step in the Crippled God's plan to manipulate events to his advantage. The Crippled God's unexpected display of empathy came when he resurrected Sandalath Drukolat, a fallen Tista Andi warrior, as a companion for Withal, a gifted Mekros smith. Despite this seemingly kind act, it was laden with his manipulative intentions. After the Edur's conquest of the Letheri Empire, Mael, the elder god of the sea, intervened. He rescued Withal and Sandalath and dealt a punishing blow to the Crippled God, symbolizing a shift in the power dynamics and a setback for the Crippled God's plans. The Crippled God's intricate schemes included a vital plan to seize the First Throne, the seat of command over the Talan Imas, an ancient race of undead warriors. This throne, however, could only be claimed by a mortal. To achieve this, the Crippled God masterminded an attack, enlisting the Tista Edur and their Letheri allies, along with Icarium, a powerful half-Jagat warrior. This assault was essential to his strategy, aiming to extend his dominion over the Talan Imas and further his broader ambitions. The campaign to take the First Throne encountered significant resistance. Defenders included Quickben, a sorcerer of great skill and cunning, Trul Sengar, a Tista Edur warrior known for his honor and prowess, and the Erisal, an enigmatic ancient entity. Their united defense was crucial in thwarting the Crippled God's designs, highlighting the formidable opposition he faced from diverse groups and individuals across the Malazan world. Amidst these unfolding events, Quickben provided a critical briefing to Adjunct Tavore Paran and the High Command. He detailed the Crippled God's catastrophic descent into the Malazan world, explaining that Kaminsod's fragmented body had scattered widely, with the majority landing in Korul and a crucial piece, his heart, falling in Kolanse. This revelation was significant, as the heart represented both the epicenter of Kaminsod's suffering and a key to his potential liberation. In Kolanse, the Crippled God's heart, situated in the spire atop the altar of judgment, was a blackened, rotted mass. Outwardly lifeless, it conveyed a sense of latent vitality upon contact. This heart was not just a physical remnant, but a symbol of Kaminsod's enduring pain and the linchpin of his salvation. Adjunct Tavore Paran, aware of the Crippled God's suffering and the broader implications of his chaining to the world, made a pivotal decision to lead her army to Kolanse. Her objective was to free the Crippled God, which put her at odds with the intentions of many in the immortal pantheon, who either wanted to exploit or keep the Crippled God chained for their purposes. This bold move was not only a military campaign, but also a moral stance against the prevailing powers in the Malazan world. However, the Northern Assail army, a formidable force known for its strength and ferocity, represented a significant obstacle to the Bone Hunters' mission. The Assail were involved due to their own alliances, some of which were influenced by the Crippled God's adversaries who sought to maintain the status quo and prevent any alteration to the balance of power that the Crippled God's release might cause. The hill under Direct's protection where the battle took place was a strategic location. Direct, the Worm of Autumn, is an ascendant and a representation of decay and renewal. Her involvement and the hill's significance provided a symbolic backdrop to the battle. This battle was not just a physical conflict, but also a clash of ideologies and cosmic forces, with the Bone Hunters embodying a resistance to the manipulation and control exerted by higher powers. Their defiance was a stand for freedom and justice, particularly in the context of the Crippled God's tragic history. Following this pivotal battle, Kaminsod took a decisive step to save the world's magic and control the Elite by using his chains to bind the Otataral dragon. The conclusion of his journey was marked ambiguously by Cotillian's act of stabbing him in the back. Although the intent behind this act remains uncertain, it is widely believed that it enabled Kaminsod's return to his realm, as his newly acquired body was unsuitable for continued existence in the Malazan world.